everybody. Thank you for clicking. This is GameThinkTalk. I'm Matthew Falvey. This is Matthew Owen.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about a few games today. Matt plays a lot of games. You play a lot of games, don't you, Matt?
I play what I would call a solid number of games is what I play. Yeah. Quite a few.
I feel like compared to you, the Gamergate people, they could come after me and accuse me of not being a real gamer.
Yeah, I play like 5 games a week. By play, I mean like I beat them. It's not healthy. It is healthy. No, but I play a shit ton of games, and you do too. You've been streaming quite a bit
of one game.
Well, but you played other games as well, like
I've been
Undertale
playing
and stuff.
multiple Final Fantasy games for years. It feels like they never end. But the first one I wanted to talk about was 2015's Undertale.
Yeah, great game. I still haven't beaten it.
I'm wondering if there is a reason why a lot of people have not beaten it, even though it's not a very long game. I played it a couple years ago when it first came out. I got about halfway through, stopped. Then I started playing it because it won the vote for what game to stream next, and I was really excited to play it. First episode, was excited. This episode, the second one, we're about halfway through. I feel like it's a little bit overrated, and maybe that's impossible for any game to avoid, especially one of the big cult following. Like, first off, the good things about it, the battle system, especially the defense, where you're doing a bullet hell avoidance, is genius, and that makes the game worth playing just for that. The sense of humor, for the most part, is pretty good, although the jokes can get very, very kind of random, and like a dad is reading you.
That's the whole style of a juvenile dad jokes kind of ordeal. Yeah.
There's a lot of that, and that can get a bit tiresome. But without doing any spoilers, there are these ways Toby Fox will change the actual gameplay to make the gameplay and the controls a part of the experience, and will subvert what you expect is going to come. So, for example, being very, very vague, there's a part where you are avoiding the bullet hell, and the rules are established. What you need to do, say it's jump over them or it's avoid them. All of a sudden, something comes along that is impossible based on the rules you know. And he assumes that you're going to try to avoid it the way you always have, yet this time you are able to. And it's this really glorious moment that I've probably never seen in a video game, where all of a sudden your character now just has like infinity of that value to get away from it. And it's like little moments like that are super genius, and I think make this game a landmark game that everyone should take a look at. Yeah. But I still think overall there are some pretty big warts on the game.
A lot of people gave it a 10 out of 10. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. But then again, I haven't beaten it, and from what I understand, the game goes some crazy places in the end. The reason I didn't finish it is because I was playing on a computer, and I don't play games on PC. And now that the game's coming out on PlayStation 4, I'll totally play it, because I play consoles over PC. Like, just as a setup, I have a laptop and I have a computer chair, and that's just not as comfortable, sitting here and playing, than sitting on a couch or my bed or a chair or anything else in front of an entertainment unit. So the only game that I can ever, I guess, sit in front of my computer and play like that is like a League of Legends or something like that. But that's usually, I have people talking to on Discord or, playing with friends. So it's not me sitting back and enjoying an experience. It's, more of like a party game. So
yeah, it's like a party multitasking.
Yeah, so it's not
the strength of the computer.
It's not weird to be like moving around, but if I'm trying to sit down and enjoy like a narrative experience like Undertale, I'm not trying to like sit up on my computer. Like, this is fun. Like, I'd like to sit back and relax, on a couch or something. So I'll probably get into it. I can't speak on if it's overrated. All I know is that it is gotten a lot of people who aren't usually fans of RPGs to play them. It does a really good job of allowing choice. You can play through the game completely without killing anybody. You can play through the game as a mixture of two. And the third choice is you can play the game with killing everybody, which the genocide run, which is killing everybody, is much harder than the pacifist run. But they all give you different outcomes. The characters are super likable. It's very nice to the cosplay and that kind of fandom community. Very personable characters with bright personas that are more so reflections of kind of real life people. Like Papyrus is like a weird antisocial kind of over the top kind of dude. He doesn't feel like a cartoon character. He feels like a dude who happens to be a cartoon. And I think that's why it resonates with people quite a bit.
It kind of has this Alice in Wonderland feel to it, where you're going into this strange place and you just keep going deeper and deeper, and around every corner is this whole it's like another episode awaits of different characters to meet, and I find that super charming for the most part. And I'll admit I haven't played the end of it, and I've heard people say the ending is really hits you in a way that could maybe totally make up for a saggy middle. But as I'm getting to what I feel is the end,
you'll know when it's the end. Okay. Apparently it's something that's like one of those crazy unique gameplay crossed with story, like doing things. Yeah, like one of those very, very, like kind of like Internal Darkness, how it deleted your save file, or your channel volume's going up. I don't know if you ever played Eternal Darkness for GameCube, but that was like a crazy thing. And apparently Undertale is doing things that are similar in scope. Metagaming, I think. I haven't played it.
I just think maybe the idea is about halfway through or 2/3 of the way through where I'm at right now. Feel like they're kind of running out. It's like, all right, here's another crazy character. Yet, it just felt like some of the ideas ran out. Where it's like, well, they're just being random, just kind of like a bad like a bad Family Guy episode, where it's just these jokes that are random for the sake of being random.
Here's the thing about Undertale is that the game is more of a narrative experience than it is an RPG. And Matt, me and you have played games for so long. Picking up Undertale, it ain't hard. You know, besides the bullet hell things, like the actual act of playing Undertale is far easier than a game like Chrono Trigger, a game like any SNES RPG. So instead of having crazy amounts of gameplay mechanics to work with, you're really relying on the narrative. And if the narrative and the jokes don't hit you, like they do with so many people in the fandom, it's not like there's a crazy amount of gameplay to fall back on. You've been playing Final Fantasy, and even though you enjoy the story, I feel like what you like the most is the battle system. And in a game like Undertale that doesn't have a crazy difficult or crazy strategic, one could say, battle system, you're pretty much left with the content that's there. And if it doesn't align with you, it doesn't align with you. I know a lot of people who love this game. It's a huge fandom, and yeah, it's probably because of some of the juvenile humor and some of the more like lighthearted stuff. But it's very nihilistic at points. It's weird. It's a weird game. We can agree at that.
Well, and there's a lot of those things that even if they are juvenile throughout the first third of the game are still very, very clever takes on video games in general and about life. And now I feel like I'm at the point where he wanted to keep that theme going, but sort of he doesn't have too much that's too meaningful. But like I say, I would not be surprised at all. I'm going to get to the end, and the ending is going to be so strong that it's going to make up for a saggy middle. I mean, that's like Return of the Jedi has an amazing beginning and an amazing ending, and you forget that the middle sucks. So
this is a good time, because if you're watching this video and you're part of like the Discord and you like streaming, like if you spoil a game for a streamer, you are the scum and the bane of YouTube. Like I cannot explain how it is such, as somebody who streams, right? And somebody who views streams, I have chosen to not stream a game that I am the most excited for because community has a very easy way of ruining it. There's a game like Tacoma. I would be I would not be surprised, actually, if you chose to not stream that game, because you have a game like Undertale. It might not mean a lot to you, right? Someone comes in and they spoil something. Okay, whatever. If someone spoiled a piece of Tacoma for me, I would turn off the stream and I would make sure to never stream anything like that again. And here's the thing, guys, is like, you can be funny in a stream, you can do whatever in a stream, but if you have no stream etiquette, you're the bane of YouTube. Like people who have come into our streams and spam chatted and spoiled things, like, you are the reason I lose sleep at night. I hate your guts. Like, that is an honest thing. And I mean, you got to put it out now, because Matt, you're a nice dude and you're doing it for all the fun. But as somebody who streamed for 3 years and on, not with you, Matt, but with other people who spoil games, it's like you're going up to a friend or somebody who is experiencing your favorite game for the first time, and then you spoil it for them. How is that making anything any better? Like, if you're there to watch somebody experience the magic that you cannot have anymore because you've already completed a game, spoiling it ruins that entire experience. So if you're like sadomasochistic or you're masochistic, like, I mean, that's a whole other problem. But general stream etiquette's good, and I feel like games that are narratives like Undertale are one of the biggest ones you should focus on.
I mean, it's like standing up in the middle of a theater and just screaming the ending or the part that's going to come up. I think a lot of people, we were talking about this before, and I think that playing Final Fantasy XIII with a stream group of a small, tightly knit one, where I felt like I knew everybody, made me like Final Fantasy XIII more than I ever would have.
Yeah, because people are working together.
And I think, yeah, exactly. And just having a lot of fun and being very respectful. However, we got to the ending episode and you get a lot of these people that are just here for the ending episode. And, we had dev moderators. We had to start kicking people out because people, they want to show how smart they are by yelling out what's going to happen. And all they really do is they're showing out how much of a negative cancer they are to the experience as a whole. Now, and if Final Fantasy XIII is an example of a game that I appreciate so much more because I streamed it, Undertale, this second episode we did, is probably an example of the game that is the total opposite, where it's like I almost didn't want to play it anymore. I thought, this is just so crazy. We're babysitting these people. I took your advice and just made everybody that I trusted a moderator, and they cleaned it up. But you can feel the stress in the chat, because maybe it's naive of me to think that as we grow, I'm going to be able to interact with people in the chat as much as I want. And it seems like once you get over about 40 people in there, it just becomes a madhouse.
Like, here's the deal. I mean, this next minute is going to be stream stuff. Like, Luigi Man, Kazi, Dark Horse, Chris Mael. Like, these are the people who join in early. They're respectful. Awesome. I see so many people who are fans of streamers who are like, oh, I freak out when they respond to my message or follow me on Twitter and all that kind of thing. And the way you become friends with people who stream, or you become in the group, is not being a dick. It's being respectful, enjoying the game along with them. Yeah. So if you pop in and you're trying to either be trolly or whatever, I mean, you're just wasting your own time, and then you're taking somebody else who is streaming, like you said, Undertale has a huge fandom. I understand. Everyone likes to talk about how much they know about the game, and, oh, I know this little secret and this little secret. But it's like watching a movie and somebody in your ear every 5 seconds going, hey, guess what's going to happen? Hey, guess what's going to happen? You don't want to play the game, and then that ruins the entire game for you going forward. And then what's the best outcome? You're going to either finish the game off stream, no one will be able to see it, and you don't enjoy it. Like, it's not good. So generally speaking, if you want to be cool in chat and not, like, YouTube is early. Mm-hmm. YouTube gaming is an early platform, and there is many reasons that you could use Twitch over YouTube gaming, but a lot of people use YouTube. So don't be the dudes who ruin it for everybody else, is all I'm saying. Like, I stick around. I had a good time watching you play Final Fantasy, even though I don't like Final Fantasy. You know, like, I liked watching because everyone was talking, like, hey, do this, do that, do this. And then there's people who are just jumping in and spamming and being complete annoying asses, and that made me be like, yep, I'm not going to watch this anymore. Yeah. So you're truly ruining it for everybody. And, I mean, yeah, you might be like 13, 14, 15 on the internet and be like, ha ha ha, you're ruining people's fun, and you should stop. Very, very hard. I mean, that's just my feelings on everything.
You know, there's an interesting thing that CBC, Canada's broadcasting company, their website, if you join their forum, you have to register with your real name. And it's there's no like Jack Sauce 22900. It's all just, so if you say anything, and there's a big difference, I think, in that, with, you know, people not hiding behind anonymity. But all right, enough about the streaming sort of bitch sesh, although it felt good to get that out, and I appreciate what you said. Let's move on to some more games here. We talked about Undertale. We won't bring up Final Fantasy anymore. You played Tacoma and you reviewed it. So how about you give us the spoiler-free?
Tacoma is a game where you go to a space station, the space station Tacoma. Yeah. Which the crew is missing, question mark. Where are they? What's going on? You don't know. You just know you're sent there to retrieve some data, okay? And the whole entire space station, think about like the spokes on a wheel, okay? You have your main piece, that's like this little anti-grav area, and then you have the spokes coming off, and those are the other areas you go to. So it's very easy to navigate, but essentially you just go to an area, and the ship itself records everybody who has these little AR headsets on. So anybody who's been on the ship will record their movements and their conversations and stuff for however long period of time. So you'll go into a section, and there's 6 crew members and 1 AI named Odin who were on this ship, and they're having, you know, doing whatever they're doing. And you'll activate a recording, and then you'll see these holograms appear within the space, you know, the area you're in. And then they'll discuss things, and then they'll branch off and do their own things. And essentially what you do is you just play out the recording, and you pick somebody and you follow them, and you kind of watch that storyline take place, and then rewind the recording, go follow other people. Occasionally there might be a key code you have to put in a door because a character walked through the door and you got to follow them, but you can't But the cool thing about it is it doesn't do it chronologically. You know, the first hologram recording you see will not be the first thing that took place. It's very pieces of puzzles, and it all comes together in the end. It's really hard to talk about the game without spoiling anything because it's very short, maybe 2 hours. What I will say is, in comparison to Gone Home, Fulbright, the people who made this game, that was their first game. This is their second. The game is more about the characters than it is about the setting. Gone Home was about you're a girl who came back from school, and your parents and your sister had moved to a new house. So the house itself was very foreboding. You know, actually exploring the house was a large part of the game. The space station's cool. You know, there's only so many different parts of it, and they are unique in a way, but they're not hugely unique in which you're like, I have to explore every corner of each room, you know. The characters take front and center, and the thing with that is that each character has their own personal story, their own personal motivation, and a lot of this stuff is kind of shoved into documents or emails you can read, or, you know, little lines of dialogue you might miss because the game is so short. So it's one of those games I wish was a teeny bit longer to flesh out some of those character stories. Like, without spoiling anything, there is one character who has a very crazy thing happen to him that I read on a piece of paper, and I'm like, I really want to know how this affected him or her in the long run, and how this makes they don't give you the time to really see that. There's maybe 5 or 6 main areas or main hologram things you watch play out, and you know, it gives you a cool story. But unlike a game like Edith Finch, there's not a lot of interactivity. You know, the first area you go into, there's some cool interactive things you can do, but it falls off on that side and goes more towards a narrative push. And I would say, in all regards of endings and twist endings and stuff, it's a decent ending, but the ending is more about the overarch. And when you care about the characters so much and their interpersonal stories, I would have liked to see more of those things kind of wrapped up. So in general, as a walking simulator, it's a great game because the narrative is tight. It's good. And in no means is the story bad. It's a great story. It's just you get so tied to these characters that you can't help but be like, oh, but I want to know what happened with this small subplot. And all you have is a document that you may or may not have missed.
Really? So you feel like there's a lot of loose ends and...
Not so much loose ends, but that you find things out, and then you really wish that you could find out more about it. Some of the subplots within a few of these characters were far more interesting to me than the whole overarch happening with the crew. You know, there's the situation happening with the crew, and then each of them, as their own persons, has their own faults and problems. It's in a way far future kind of thing where there's a bunch of things about society that are different. Like, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but people have their own personal problems that you can empathize with, that you could see yourself in. And those things are much more tangible and much more interesting than a giant spaceship floating, or a space station floating in outer space. You know, it's easier to connect with these character stories, and I wish that would have been fleshed out a little bit more, because in Fulbright's original game, Gone Home, those character stories became the forefront and what really made that shine. So it's almost like they took the overarch over the character stories, and it's whatever. I'm rambling and making it sound worse than it is. It's a good time. Just don't expect more than a pretty interactive story, I would say.
Would you think Gone Home's better?
No. Gone Home is not better, because Gone Home, while I would say the focus on the 3 characters of Gone Home, or really truly the one character who is your sister, the actual act of being able to press square or X or whatever, you know, button on your keyboard and play out this recording and watching people move in real time, instead of just reading a document that's voiced. You know, these characters move, they emote, they have different body types. All the characters are very, very distinct. They feel like real people. So being able to watch them move throughout the areas, and, you know, as they... Because these are recordings, you know, you're not watching over their shoulder, you're not talking to them. So you'll have these parts where they walk away by themselves, you know, they lament on their situation. They might think about talking to somebody, but don't want to. And actually watching this stuff play out, it's like when Half-Life 2 started non-stopped cutscenes where you can interact and walk around, and it was really revolutionary. People were like, oh, you can walk around during cutscenes. That's what this game is essentially a super interactive cutscene that's broken up into several pieces.
Right. It's almost like being there as a VR experience in a way. Exactly.
You're like the camera. You know, you're your own character who doesn't really matter in the long run, but you are watching this whole thing, and as a storytelling technique, it just works way better than Gone Home. You know, you have a game like Edith Finch, that's a completely fantastical story. This one is a grounded story in a fantastical location, aka space, but truly the best part about it is being able to play the recordings. Small little example. There was a part where there's these two people talking in like a supply closet, and there was something that was loud. And as you follow around the holograms, like if you get closer to a hologram, their voice will be louder because it's spatially aware.
Right.
So I was watching this thing play out, and there was like a fan or some shit behind me, and a character walked away and said something. And I was like, oh, I didn't hear that. And I literally just pressed like left bumper and rewind the hologram 5 seconds, and then walked in front of their face and heard what they had to say. So the ability to quickly rewind something if you want to rehear a line or maybe stop and view a situation or something like that, the ability to actually stop the recordings and view it in your own time is what makes the storytelling so good. So yeah, it's an improvement on Gone Home in the way they tell the story. In the complexity, I would say it's an improvement. It's an overall improvement on Gone Home. Yeah, and it's definitely worth trying if you like walking simulators.
But there's so in terms of like the puzzle solving and you being, you know, like when I think of Tales from the Borderland,
yeah,
I think of that game as the funniest video game writing I've ever experienced. But a lot of times I felt like I don't need to be here. This could just be a show. I mean, the screen pops up and it goes, hey, press left. But to me, it felt very, very patronizing in a way like, sure, yeah, you're pressing left. Good job. But there wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not a puzzle. It's just walking around and clicking on everything until you eventually get the key. So was there anything in here that was challenging that felt sort of mentally stimulating in that way or rewarding?
There's no puzzles really to be spoken of. Like I said, the only things that you might have to do are you have to remember that you are in a space station and watching recordings of things that have happened, like, you know, days or months previous. So when somebody walks through a door into their office, they have the key code to get in, right? You don't know. So you might have to go and find it. But at no point is it ever a puzzle. It's literally just go to their computer terminal and look at their notes, or, you know, or it's in a line of dialogue that they're already saying that you're watching. This could easily be a TV series, but honestly, the ability to choose who you want to follow, who you prioritize, who you side with, and who you empathize with most makes it better than a TV show. Because with a TV show, you are going to have, you know, you have 6 characters, and there's a few scenes where they're all talking together, but most often than not, a scene will start off with everybody in one place, and then they kind of go off and do their own thing. And it's up to you to choose who you want to follow, and it's up to you to choose who you want to prioritize based upon what characters you empathize with. In a television show or a movie, the director or the writer is going to choose how much of this conversation you see, how much of the fiddling the character does that you go in and look at. And in addition, when you're doing these recordings, right, each crew member and you yourself have an AR desktop. It's like futuristic. So you press a button and it brings up kind of like think of like a phone desktop, right? During recordings, you can access the crew members' desktops, and they're somewhat corrupted, but there's things to read in there, and a lot of your what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the way you get to know these characters is through reading their personal messages that they've been sending and going into those AR desktops. So as a show or as a sort of guided experience, it wouldn't work because it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to read this 3-page whatever or look at this book they were reading. And there's a lot of little things in the environment that give you little pieces on how this character might act and how they might be in the real world, and it's stuff that you can just easily overlook. We're into something like Tales of the Borderlands or any Telltale game where it's kind of a guided experience. Like you said, it could just easily, you can wipe out the QTEs and just watch it as a cutscene. But I think Tacoma affords a lot of individuality and a lot of control over your story. So
not necessarily. It's not The Witness. There aren't these brain teasers.
No,
but there is a lot of open-endedness in the way of how you're going to approach it. Like you said before, the character is the camera, and then you're also the director in a way. So overall, it sounds pretty strong. Just wasn't quite what you were hoping for.
When the makers of Gone Home, which, like I said, is you have to go through this giant house and figure out how to get through this trap door and this thing and that thing and all. It's pretty cool. When they said we're making a game about exploring a space station, I thought it was going to be a game about exploring a space station. It's more or less go to this first area, watch the things play out, gather all the information you need to. and then go to the next area. It's a linear progression. You know, it's not as long as I would have thought it would have been. But then again, that's because I thought it was exploring a space station. It's more or less exploring 5 or 6 areas that could just be on a base somewhere.
Right.
It's
the
just that you're
which is such a departure from Gone Home, because Gone Home was all about was that environmental storytelling that BioShock did so well and System Shock did so well, where it was that 90s house and that nostalgia. It was looking through a box of, you know, VCR tapes, homemade VCR tapes, or a phone book, or a typewriter, or just
the same way. It's the same way they do it in Tacoma. Is that things are future tech and all that kind of thing. But the same way they used Gone Home, it's a house in the middle of the woods to give you some sort of like, ooh, spooky. That's basically, it's a space station, because in space no one can hear you scream. It's the furthest in the most far place to be abandoned or for something to go wrong. You know, it doesn't really need to be in space. These environments don't need to be in space. It could be on a planet in the future, and you would have the same sort of content. It would just make different story implications. So that's the thing. I thought I was exploring some crazy, weird sci-fi space station, and it wasn't the case. It was a more linear experience, but the amount of movement they afford you in that linear experience is appreciated.
Well, there you have it. If you want to hear a bit more, you can read Matthew Owens. Almost called you the wrong Matthew.
Hey man, we have so many Matts on this.
I don't know how I got
show.
that confused. Yeah, you can read his full review on a90skid.com. You can listen to his podcast, Super Gamecast 64.
Yeah, it's great. You can find that on Stitcher, iTunes, Podomatic.com.
We have a whole bunch of we have a whole team bringing you news and reviews and opinions at a90skid.com. I'm streaming on this channel Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. We're doing Undertale and Final Fantasy 13-2. That is
Z. Final Fantasy 13-2 is not the good one.
It's better than I thought.
Is Final Fantasy 13-2 the one where you like go through different timelines, or is that Lightning Returns?
Yeah, timelines.
Okay, that is the good one. Never mind.
It's fantastic. Real quick, the storytelling in 13 was so crazy, it was all over the place. 13-2, although the first cutscene is stupidly random and you don't know why you should care about anybody, once they land there, they show you the main character, they establish a setting, there are NPCs just living their life, they show you all these reasons why she wouldn't want to leave, and then they make you leave. And it's really fantastically well done. They did so much better.
I played maybe like 15, 20 hours of Final Fantasy 13, maybe less, I don't know. And that game was like, meh, for me. I watched you play it, but I never played 13-2 myself, but I did watch my friend play it for a much longer period of time. And everything I gained from that experience is, oh, okay, so this is what they probably wanted to do in 13-2, but wanted to keep it more grounded, or 13, but they want to keep, like 13-2 seems very weird with all the timelines and stuff. It feels like a lot of those ideas they might have wanted to put in 13, but they wanted to keep it grounded. So I'm interested to see what 13-2 does. I feel like they'll go some crazier places than 13 even did.
You know, 13, I can totally understand. I was one of the people that played 13 for the first 15 hours. And I'm like, okay, that was a long tutorial. This was really boring. It was a corridor. The story was too complex, and I hated it. And I thought it was trash.
30-hour long tutorial.
And then, And then after I played it again and started to understand it and really love the battle, it's the best battle system I've ever played in an RPG.
It's a good battle system.
It's great. And there's underneath all that crap of like the Primarch, the l'Cie, the fal'Cie, the 4 different kinds of l'Cie and fal'Cie, and and the ever-changing villain. If you just edited that, if somebody went in and just said, nope, that's crazy, this needs to go, there's such a beautiful story underneath of people that are dealing with the fate of, you're gonna get turned into a zombie.
Oh, Matt. What you're describing here is how the Japanese tell their stories. This is why I don't watch anime. Is what you're saying?
Because it's it's just too all over the place.
This isn't like racist in any way, or even a doc on how the Japanese do it. But Japanese storytelling is a lot of exposition, but it's also a lot of telling the audience things that they could infer or already know, or just beating a dead horse.
Absolutely.
And it's always to add drama, but the drama's never there. Like it's I don't know if maybe people in the East just perceive their entertainment differently, but we're very character centric. We like characters, we like things and interpersonal stories, and I feel like every Final Fantasy is always about some crazy huge epic about this huge organization and this huge organization, and then they spend so much time talking about the world itself and building the lore that you never get time to care about the people in there. That's the actual interesting part. And it's why I don't watch anime and only select animes and mangas.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the strengths of the 13 story is that almost every one of the characters in the main gang grows considerably.
Yeah, they're good characters.
And they go from being mostly annoying to being, to like going through a realistic character arc that makes sense, feels good, and is super rewarding. But it's buried by all this other stuff. And there are hardly any other... You actually don't even see any NPCs for 20 hours in Final Fantasy 13 that aren't enemies.
Yep.
But once you get through it, and then it opens up, and they give you all of these... I mean, there are people in the stream chat that have played the game for 300 hours, and there's still enemies they can't defeat yet. And the battle system is still so good and so rewarding that they want to keep leveling it up. And it's so customizable that you can really have your own creative way of dealing with these enemies.
For somebody who really likes world building and an actual living world and the characters within it, I'm surprised you still haven't taken back up Witcher 3. Like,
yeah,
you say Witcher 3 is overwhelming, and then you drop like 40 hours on, or not 40, like 120 hours on this Final Fantasy. Like, Witcher 3 is everything. If they made a Final Fantasy game and told it like The Witcher tells it,
yeah.
The
Witcher 3 that I played it at the wrong time. I brought it home the day that Fallout 4 came out, and I'll admit I got sucked up in the hype train, and I just really wanted to play Fallout 4, which was such a letdown. But
for me, I liked it.
But I was incredibly impressed with The Witcher 3. Not even the big bloody Baron quest everybody talks about, but there's another one where you go and you meet this king, and you're talking with his servant, and they're getting you dressed properly, and the way they handle the weight and the magnitude of someone who is just a Witcher, made it feel so realistic and gave it a real, just like heavy realism and a sense of like
the world is real. It's not a fantasy world. It's believable, even though it's so obviously fantasy.
Mm-hmm. And you could feel like the inner politics of this sort of the servant to the upper one. I mean, it was like, man, did these people all feel like they were alive and had pros and cons about them and had their own motivations that all made sense even when they were at odds with each other. You weren't just it's all hail the Great Witcher. He comes in there and, he can do no wrong.
They're
You're
flawed
actually kind
characters.
of like a sack of shit.
Yeah, he's a very flawed character. Are you looking forward to Steampunk 2077? Are you familiar at all?
It's not called Steampunk 2077.
I thought it was called Steampunk 2077. What is it called?
Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk, fuck it all. It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Well, steampunk and cyberpunk are
is like a big hat and goggles and all this
they're very
crap.
different aesthetics.
Cyberpunk 2077, I would pre-order that now if I could.
That's what I was just gonna say, because
so
that's
excited.
right up your alley.
Because I'm way more into the futuristic stuff than magic, and that's why Shadowrun will always be my favorite.
I was just gonna say Shadowrun, boy.
Because it's cyberpunk plus magic and elves and orcs. It's the greatest.
You're really gonna enjoy Steampunk 2077.
Yeah, that's great. Will Smith fighting a giant mechanical spider. That's
you're talking about boss. Wild West. Hey! Yeah. Well, yeah, this has been a great episode of GTT. Can I just say real quick, if you like MOBAs, which are League of Legends and the Dota 2.
Steampunk.
Wait, hold on. No. If you like Overwatch, League of Legends, and then you also like games like Paladins and Overwatch, right? Gigantic is a game that's on Xbox One and Windows 10 and Steam and all that kind of stuff. It's like taking those two things and putting them together.
Oh yeah, like that? Like making two action figures have sex?
Yeah. But what it is it's like that. It's like an Overwatch kind of game where it's competitive. It's not as much objective. Well, it is objective based. Think kind of like territories, but each character has their own skill set, kind of like you'd see in a Dota or a League of Legends. But the thing that's cool about it is if you are a PC gamer and you have Windows 10, right, and you can download Gigantic through the Windows 10 store because it's free.
Wow.
You can play with all your Xbox One friends. It's one of those play anywhere things. So my friend Zach and my friend Ian and a few of my other friends were like, oh, you should get a good computer so you can play Gigantic with us. And I was like, or you guys should download it through the Windows 10 store so we can play crossplay. And I have not had a single issue for connectivity, lag, any sort of ordeal, cross-playing with two people who are playing on PC. I'm playing on Xbox. We're in a party, going into matchmaking, have had no difficulties whatsoever. So just the fact that crossplay has reached that point where I can easily be like, hey, I'm on my Xbox. I can send an invite to them and they can join it even though they're on PC, and it just works like perfectly fine. Like, props to Gigantic. The game's also really fun.
Well, and also Microsoft right now is in a position, and they always have been with the Xbox, where they're not afraid of losing money.
Yeah.
When the original Xbox came out, the guy who was the original CEO for Xbox, every time they would have these, like, all the bigwigs from Microsoft get together and the dinners and the parties, all the other Microsoft heads of their divisions would come over to this guy and be like, your division should shut down. You're losing money. You're lowering my stock value. You're making my kids' future inheritance. They're gonna own less boats in the future because of you and stupid
Instead
Fusion
of
Frenzy.
27 boats, they're gonna have 24 in a pontoon boat.
Yeah, and that's what Microsoft can do. It's like Microsoft watched PS Now, and it's too expensive.
They just Netflixed it.
And it requires streaming, and it's not a great service, right? It's okay in some circumstances, but it's not going to be a Netflix. And Xbox just said, oh, we'll pay this much, and you can just download the games. I mean, it's probably not in their best interest. It is not in Microsoft's best interest to make everything, almost all the exclusives for Xbox, also available on Windows, because all you're doing is you're saying to Windows owners, well, don't buy an Xbox. If you own a PC, buy a PlayStation. Then you can have all the games.
But you do have to go through Windows 10. You do have to go through Windows 10, and that is a thing. Currently, because Windows 10 was the free upgrade, and that's about to end. And what you're about to see now is all of the
a riot.
Play Anywhere game, like Cuphead. Cuphead is a great game that you would want to play cross-play on Xbox One and PC. It's going to have it, as far as I understand. Windows 10 will not be free anymore. So what that means is, if you want to play the Xbox exclusives and you don't have Windows 10 on your PC, you're going to have to spend $150 to get Windows 10.
Oh, really? Wow. Didn't know.
Well, I mean, a new OS is like $150. Windows was just trying to push it on everybody at the beginning of that whole launch, and now that's over.
They're like the stories you hear of drug dealers. They give it to you for free and get you hooked.
Well, if you have Windows 8 or anything, like in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, it'd always be like, Windows 10. You can get Windows 10. And now that they're ending that, here's all the games that you can cross-play. So I'm sure, people they'll see a few sales for Windows 10 from that. But
interesting. Yeah. Hey, that was probably our best post saying all of the identifier stuff part.
Let's do it again.
Became a whole other half episode.
Twitter. We didn't do Twitters. Matt, where can they find you on Twitter?
GameThinkTalk on Twitter.
At GameThinkTalk. You got to know. Otherwise, they'll just type in GameThinkTalk and then they'll get lost in the Twitter sphere. You can find me at SuperGamecast64 is the official podcast Twitter. But if you want to talk to me personally, at SGC64Matt. Also, earlier I was like, if you want to listen to my podcast, you can go to all these places. You can just go to my Twitter, and at the top it'll be the pinned episode. So that's much easier.
But
also, listen,
but like the way that I say, I'm not going to tell people to put an at when I'm talking about Twitter. If you're talking to people about podcasts, people who listen to podcasts know how to find podcasts.
True.
It's like you don't need to see our website's www. It's a website.
HTTP:// dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, it's not a secure HTTP.
No.
Right.
No.
So don't put your credit card info on there.
We don't even take credit card info. You need a gold subscription to get this podcast.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it. Go to a90skid.com for more news, reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Share it with somebody who might like it, and have a good one.
Don't spoil things in the stream.
Right.
Right on.